So loud for me. Okay. Hi, Alfred. All right. Okay. So I think everyone else is going to be on the replay because they are in way different time zones or working. So I'll just kind of keep an eye out for that, but we'll kind of go ahead and get started. And I'm excited for today. A lot of people are kind of over healing the inner child, and but for me, that's where our programming began, and that's when our separation from source began. So if we go back to that and we heal that and we work on that and expand that aspect of ourselves, that part of our ego and our mind and our body consciousness, then we can truly begin to be able to heal and move energy through us. So the first thing I want to do is begin by just having us breathe. When we're in a somewhat disharmonic state, like, oh, this is really cool. Not to get sidetracked, well, a little bit. But Abby's, because I'm a walk-in, not sure what this subject means to me, many health issues, disruptions in this field. So one thing to keep in mind, whether you're a walk-in or whether, you've been here on the planet the whole time in your body, your mind, your ego, and your body consciousness have all been here since the beginning, and they're all holding the memory of what that inner child experienced. Whether your soul is a walk-in and came in later or not, these different aspects of you still hold that cellular memory of these different kind of programs. So when we work with the inner child today, one thing that we're really going to be working with is the ego and the mind and the body consciousness, so that whatever we heal and release gets released on a DNA clearing level. But that too, the ego began to get programmed in the womb. And so we have to, if we can go back to those sources and unprogram it, because time is not really linear, that's just a construct that we have here, then we can unprogram and retrain the ego from an inner child perspective, which then comes up to the adult self and helps the adult self have a different kind of relationship with the ego as well. So we're just continuing to expand our understanding of the human container, what it's capable of receiving, what it's capable of the limitlessness that we can really become. So Jennifer is experiencing lots of sadness and anger. I asked, it's collective, and me choosing anger and pushing down my power. Caught myself choosing anger and was able to choose again. So that's another reason why we needed to work on inner child today, because there is a lot of collective frequencies coming up to be healed and released. So our inner child is a little scared, for one, at all these different kinds of shifts and changes. So we'll start there. So let's go ahead and, if you can, close your eyes and begin taking some deep belly breaths. When we're in a semi-incoherent state, meaning our emotions are a little elevated, we're feeling anger or sadness or overwhelm or stress, what that does to our biofield that we all reside within, we all reside within this beautiful biofield, we actually become more matter than light. So on a basic physiological level, that means our energy field shrinks, the space between matter within us compresses, and we can't hold as much light. So if we breathe deep and we begin to relax our central nervous system, so breathing in slower than you normally would tells the body that it's safe. So begin to breathe in a little bit slower than its normal rate, and that biologically sends messages that your body is safe and that it can calm down. And as it does that, what happens is that the frequencies that you're radiating out begin to become more coherent. So your biofield expands back out and you can bring in more light. Okay, so then we become more light than matter. So now begin to feel the bottoms of your feet open up. And that the energy centers that lie on the bottoms of your feet, as they open and expand, they're going down into the earth, these energy centers that are under the soles of your feet. They're going down into the earth, but they're also expanding out over the top of the earth. So we're grounding down into the earth, but we're also grounding across the different layers of the earth. Where different fields of consciousness lay within the earth. So as we ground, we're not just grounding down, but we're grounding down and out at the same time. There's different dimensions. I spoke about this before, but as a little recap, dimensions basically is a sphere inside of another sphere, inside of another sphere, inside of another sphere, and it just keeps on going. And each dimension carries a range of frequencies. So the more incoherent a frequency is of anger, of guilt, of shame, of unworthiness, the less ability it has to radiate out very far and expand, because the molecules of energy within that frequency, they're not working in a cohesive manner. They're kind of fighting against each other. So instead of the wave being able to radiate out and expand out into greater levels of consciousness, it stays really stuck. And that's why the innermost sphere, the first dimension, second dimension, whatever, that's why they're small and compact, because the frequencies within them can't radiate out. The molecules are too incoherent and fighting against each other. So as we expand and ground into the earth, we're expanding into the different frequencies that the earth holds, the different dimensional fields that reside within the earth. So now we're going to allow this energy to come from the core of the earth. We're going to allow her to send energy back up to you. And everyone's going to receive the color that they are most needing in their morphic field. So there's some of you receiving ruby red, there's purple coming up and pink, and I even see almost like a orangey tangerine color. And there's peach. And someone has a teal blue. So all you have to do is allow yourself to receive. At this point, you don't even need to know if you are worthy of receiving or believe you're worthy of receiving. You just have to allow. So with each breath, just allow. We're not judging this energy that's coming into us as good, bad, right, wrong. We're not judging ourselves as good, bad, right, wrong. This is just an observation of what it feels like to receive this energy. As it comes into you, what do you feel? Do you feel expansive? Can you feel where in your body it's getting stuck at? Can you feel where in your body it's moving energy that feels denser on your behalf? These are just frequencies that we're receiving right now. Every color carries a range of frequencies. There aren't any that are better or worse. It's just frequencies, and we each need different frequencies depending on what energies we've accumulated throughout our day, throughout our week, throughout the month, throughout the year, where we're at in our own conscious evolution of releasing, of expanding, of integrating. So just continue to slow down the breath, reminding the body that it's safe to allow these colors to come into the body, to integrate with the body, that it's safe. These are just frequencies. We've experienced all these different colors before. The only difference now is that we're just being conscious of it. We each have a different color of shirt on. My inner child picked this hot pink one out for me today. Every time we wear a color, we're integrating the frequencies of that color. So this is no different. There's a couple of you whose bodies are a little tense, and I'm feeling a little in fear of really relaxing and receiving. So I'm talking more to the body consciousnesses right now than to you. There we go. Okay, and notice that in your heart space, as you begin to feel these energies and connect with these different colors, that there's a little bit more room and you didn't have to go anywhere or do anything. Can you feel there's a little bit more space? Do you feel a little calmer? As you let more light into your biofield. I yawn a lot when I'm doing sessions, and it's just me releasing energy. I'm not bored with any of you. So if you yawn, if you cry, if you laugh, it's just energy releasing. And we're releasing quite a bit right now. Because as we begin to let this light in, and as we begin to allow our biofields to expand back out so we're not as much matter, we are naturally releasing densities that we've picked up along our way. We're naturally changing the vibration of the densities that we've picked up along the way. We're transmuting them. And again, we didn't have to go anywhere. And the only thing that we've worked so far with is the earth and the colors that she's held. And there's already a big energy shift happening. Okay, so let's come into our heart space. Just sink down into your heart. I'm going to tell your mind that it gets to relax. I want you to just tell your mind that it's going to relax in a big, easy chair. So put a big, comfy, lazy boy, cozy chair over in the corner of your mind. And tell your mind it gets to just chill out in that chair. Gets to just relax. It doesn't have to think. Okay. Now I sent an email out yesterday relaying a story about my youngest son. And I didn't send that out to brag on him or anything like that. What I wanted to relay was, and for those of you who didn't read it, totally fine. The story was that my middle son and my oldest son both ended up having events Saturday morning, this coming Saturday morning at the exact same time. And we weren't aware of what time my youngest son's events were going to take place until yesterday when we finally got the schedule out. We thought he was going to be in the afternoon, so we thought we could do both. My oldest son only gets to have this experience one time a year, one day a year. And it's really important for him that we go and watch him. He loves it when we're all watching him, because normally most weekends are about following his brothers around to their activities. So my youngest son, I sat him down and I told him that unfortunately on Saturday, his rugby tournament was going to be at the exact same time as his older brother's Special Olympics basketball. And he immediately welled up with tears and he put his face in a pillow and he cried. And I didn't say anything. I didn't ask him any questions. I didn't say that he couldn't go. I just let him process the emotion. And I just sat there. And then when he was ready, he sat up. He took a couple of deep breaths in. And then he said, I'm going to skip rugby. I'm going to skip the rugby tournament. I want to go watch Caden, his older brother. So I said, okay, are you sure you want to do that? We can make it work if you want to go to the rugby tournament. And he said, no, I know it's important for me to go watch Caden. I know how much Caden appreciates it when we go all together to watch him. And he's only 8 years old. So I was just kind of fascinated that he was able to process this entire experience, go through the emotions of it, and then come out with a high intellectual ability to make a decision. And so what was being shown to me was that there were 2 timelines that he could have taken. And there were multiple different timelines within our own childhood experiences when, if we would have been allowed to experience the emotion without any kind of judgment of right, wrong, good, bad, and we would have then come through the emotion to a place of neutrality, that we could have made a good decision, that we would have been unprogrammed growing up. Because the other alternative for my son would have been for me to kind of push him when he was crying, saying, it's okay, Luke, we'll do something else, we'll make it work, whatever. What he could have chosen was self-pity of, I always come second best. I'm not, what's wrong with me? How come I'm not as important as my older brother? These different codes. Each one of those frequencies that he could have experienced is a code. Those codes come together and they create a program. So a program that is in the 3rd dimensional field of which we live, of unworthiness, that almost every person on the planet downloads, carries different frequencies, which are different codes embedded in it. So if he would have not been able to process that emotion and then come out to make a high intellectual decision, then tomorrow morning when we wake up and it's Saturday here and we're taking him to basketball to watch my oldest son, instead of him going to a rugby tournament, he could have felt a lot of self-pity, a lot of, how come I'm not important enough to go to this tournament, but my brother is, kind of thing. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? So if we don't have the ability to process an emotion, then we create codes. We download codes, we download programs. So when we were children, we weren't taught how to breathe through an emotion. There weren't a lot of people that understood emotions. When emotions are high, intelligence is low. They can't work hand in hand. Emotions are high, intelligence are low. The reason why that is because emotions release so many different hormones. When those hormones are released, the ability for our minds to activate really coherent neural pathways to make good decisions decreases. There's too many different hormones and frequencies going through the body. So we, on a physiological level, cannot make really good decisions when our emotions are high. Children are highly emotional beings. They experience an entire range of emotions. We all did that growing up. The problem that we had growing up was that we didn't have a lot of people around us that understood emotion, that gave us the freedom to fully express that emotion, that didn't judge the emotions that we had, saying that they're good, right, wrong, bad, whatever. They created a judgment around it. So that created programs because we took on all these different codes that were in association with the emotion that we were feeling, and we held that in. We held it in because we didn't know how to release it. We didn't know how to release the emotion. We didn't know how to breathe. We didn't know how to honor ourselves without judging ourselves. And every time there was a judgment around something being good or bad or right or wrong, that created a program. So our egos were developing from when we're in the womb forward. And our egos are beautiful. They're our personalities. They're our personality traits. The problem with our egos has been they've been conditioned and programmed by our emotional bodies, which is full of programs that we never processed. So, is that making sense for everyone? You can shake your head, you can write in the chat. Okay. So another example of, sorry to use my kids as Aussie as examples, but it's the easiest way to see it. So just the other day, my parents had to put their 14-year-old German Shepherd to sleep, and the kids absolutely loved her. She was an incredible dog, and she would follow around and kind of herd them like they were her sheep or something, protecting them when they were outside and she was out there with them. So when I told my boys that they had to put her to sleep, they immediately just started crying, and I just let them cry. I just let them cry. I didn't say anything. I didn't try to overtly comfort them. I didn't ask them any questions. I just let them cry. After a few minutes, they came out, dried off their faces, and they were off smiling and laughing again. Because they just gave themselves permission to feel the grief and the sadness that they felt. They moved it through them, and it can be so fast. It's not saying that when they go to my parents' house, they won't feel grief again when they don't see her there. But in the now moment, they allow themselves to feel that grief. And because they don't have a program running in the background saying, this is really sad, don't love things, they get taken away from you, all these different programs, they don't have those, it just passed right through them. Barb, yes, being the third child and never allowed to show emotion, I resonate. Yes, and often, I mean, all children. So I feel sad knowing this, and I knew it from when my kids were tiny, but I felt I couldn't allow them to express an experience because it upset my husband. So Rosemary, I completely understand that because I had that too. And for men, this is hard on a whole nother level, right? So one other thing that we're going to talk about today is the masculine and feminine energies. Masculine energies haven't really been able to show emotion. It's so programmed in that that's not acceptable. So my husband still to this day, he's married to me, and he still has some issues allowing the kids to cry it out because we have 3 boys. They're 13, 11, and 8. And it's hard for him because he was never given that experience. It wasn't acceptable for him. So even though he is connecting and he does understand it, on his most primal level, he wants to just be like, stop crying. And I'm like, take a breath, take a step back. We're going to let them process. They process, and then they're good to go. Good, Alyssa. I'm glad it's landing. Okay, so the patriarchal energy, what if you have several early traumas that you cannot give understanding to? That's okay, because remember, every trauma is just a frequency. So the need for us, sometimes it is helpful when we understand the story behind a traumatic experience of why it happened. Sometimes that's okay. But other times we don't need to know why we're carrying a program or where it came from or what the experience, why we experience the thing, because it's just a frequency. It's just a frequency that was in the dimensional field that we were living in at the time, and we downloaded it. And so if we downloaded it, we can undownload it, right? It's just a frequency. So that's okay. So what we need to do when we do the inner child work is to begin unmeshing the patriarchal energy from the masculine energy, and even the patriarchal energy from feminine energy, so that the frequencies can just live on their own and everything can be a sovereign experience. But we'll kind of get into that more when we bring our inner child up to play. So the ego, just to recap, the ego, our personality, it was something developed to protect ourselves and to give us an individualized experience here on earth. So what my oldest son with autism showed me was that not having an ego was very harmful to him because it didn't give him a shield in his energy field. So because those with autism live very much in unity consciousness, they're continually being bombarded by external visualizations, what they hear, what they see, what they feel all the time. And it's very difficult when you don't have an ego to distinguish what is yours and what isn't yours. So our egos, a lot of spiritual teachers are talking about dissolving the ego, dissolving the ego. There's no place for the ego in the new world. And I understand what they're saying, but I think it's been misrepresented a little bit, because it isn't what we're actually needing to do is to dissolve the programs that reside within the ego so that the ego can do what it was originally meant to do. And that's just to be a beautiful shield in our biofield. What it begins to do is look at things from a place of compassion. Is this a frequency that is needed in my energy field? Is it a harmonic match to me? Is it going to allow for expansion of my own God codes? Or is this frequency disharmonic in nature? Is this frequency coming in from the external environment going to cause me to shut down? Is it going to cause me to condense and be more matter? If it's going to cause me to condense and be more matter, then it's not a vibrational match for me. It's something to be redirected out of the field. And that's what we can give your ego permission to do. So we're just changing the rules of what the ego has done up to this point. We're unprogramming it. We're not going to completely dissolve it. I don't even know if that's possible. I know they're talking about it. I don't really think that's possible. So we're just going to play with it differently. We're going to unprogram so that we can expand out and be our truest God sense of self. I have autism too, and it has been hard having parents that were rough, and I couldn't open up to feeling and understanding emotions clearly. Jessica, thank you, thank you, thank you. The other, there's so much I want to talk to you about. Okay, so the other part of this is when you have autism, or when we really start to allow ourselves to feel emotion, we're not going to want to be in our root chakra because it's very overwhelming. And our root chakra has been programmed with survival energy. It was our survival center here on earth. It was our grounding mechanism to connect with the earth. But it doesn't have to be in survival. The overriding frequency of the root chakra no longer needs to be survival. We're not hiding in caves from bears and tigers and whatever anymore. So the overriding frequency in our root chakra needs to be one of trust. And we can do that. we can actually do that today. I also have that as a free MP3 in my library because I think that's something that everyone needs to do. So if we're not fully grounded into our root chakra, if our spirit's not centered into our root chakra, what then occurs is that we're not able to properly process emotion because it starts and it loops. It needs to be able to loop and it needs to be able to ground, and we can't ground if we're not in our root chakra. The other issue that we have then, if we're not in our root chakra, or if our root chakra has densities and blocks and incoherent programs in it, is that blocks actually our mind's ability to methylate. This is a lot of information. So our brain's ability to turn one hormone into a different hormone, or to turn one chemical into different chemicals, that's called methylation. Methylation is what allows us to feel the feel-good hormones. Methylation usually begins with melatonin. Melatonin is released from the pineal gland. Melatonin is in charge of DNA repair. It's in charge of a lot of different things that are very important for hormone regulation, that are important for our ability to be grounded and feel good here, basically. So it is a closed loop system from the spine up to the brain. There's this closed loop fluid system. The spinal fluid travels up to your brain twice a day. Twice a day, your brain gets flushed with cerebral fluid. The spinal fluid comes up, it flushes the brain. When that flush happens, that activates the pineal gland. Then the pineal gland releases melatonin, and that's when you start to get DNA repair and the important things. That's how we make serotonin, which we know feels good, things like that. So what directly affects that pump's ability to work is our lower three chakras. That root chakra, if it's in survival and not trust, it's going to be a little incoherent. It's going to cause some blocks on that spinal fluid. It's not going to move fluidly. And then we're not going to have the methylation in the brain. So that is why it's so important to be able to properly run emotions and to connect with them, not fear them, but in giving the body permission, giving the ego and the mind permission to work on your behalf to help move this energy for your human container on your behalf, with you, for you. And a lot of this was shut down when we were children because we were just learning how to be here and we were watching all the adults survive their little world, right? So, okay, so let's go ahead and get into, I feel like I'm talking. Hold on, let me get some water. So if that was a lot of information. If that makes sense to everyone, you can put it in the group chat, or you can just shake your head yes, and I'll look at you. Okay. Beautiful, thank you, Rosemary. Okay, great. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to start to close our eyes, connect in, and we're gonna bring our inner child forward, and we're gonna bring our ego forward, and our mind forward, and our body forward. Great, thank you. It's good to see you, Julie, and your dog. Okay, let's close our eyes and just start breathing. Again, slow the breath down. And then let it out at a rate that feels good to you. And pull the breath down further. We're going to pull it all the way down. We're going to pull it down to the sacral chakra. That's where I'm feeling everyone's pretty tight at today. So the sacral chakra lies right below your belly button. So just bring your awareness all the way down to right below your belly button. And we're going to allow that to begin to expand out. We are going to begin to ask your guardian angels to start unplugging you from the third dimensional field from the holographic morphic field that we all reside within, just for a little while. And if you have children or spouses that you want to receive this healing today, or anyone else, you can just intentionally put them here with us, and I'll work on them too. Okay, so now with your sacral chakra, I want you to expand out. Just hold the intention that it's expanding as we're releasing. So now I want you to bring your inner child forward. And whatever age pops up for you is perfect. I want you to have them show you, and this is where we put our pretend goggles on. Have them show you a situation they experienced when they knew they were downloading a program that wasn't necessarily true for them, but they downloaded the program because they felt like they should. It helped them fit in. It caused them to feel the way they thought they should be feeling, judged off of everyone else's reactions around them to the experience. So here's an example. I was working with a client yesterday, and her inner child came forward, and she loved to wear dresses. But she had this favorite uncle that kept telling her that she should wear jeans. And so a couple weeks after he kept telling her that, she fell down and scraped her knee. And then from then on out, she wore jeans. Can you see how she conformed and created the experience of getting hurt, showing her that really she should be wearing jeans instead of the dresses she loved to wear? And her uncle wasn't even being intentionally unkind about it. It was his own fear of her scraping her knees, of her being seen as a feminine girl, because he had never been married and he didn't trust females. And he wanted to protect her from herself, from her own divine feminine. Okay, so whatever is coming up for you, let's bring forward your ego during that time. We're going to bring forward your mind during that time and your body consciousness during that time. And we're going to show them a program that you downloaded. And someone just said, sometimes I can hear what your guys' consciousness is saying. And someone just said, I'm having problems coming up with one experience. And that's okay, because your inner child's going to show the ego, mind, and body the experience for you. So we're going to show it how this frequency, this range of frequencies came into your field as a child, how they entered through your heart, how the heart sent a signal to the brain, which released chemicals in the mind to start activating thoughts that were a vibrational match to this external range of frequencies. These neural pathways that were formed in the mind that were a vibrational match to the thoughts, that were a vibrational match to the chemicals, that were a vibrational match to these external frequencies that came in through the heart, became a subconscious program. The ego looked at these programs and took them on to be true for your whole human container, wanting to protect you from experiencing more situations like that. But in fearing these kind of situations, it actually drew more of these situations to you because of harmonic resonance, which is a physics term that means like attracts like. So this whole process has caused more harm than good. It caused us to feel separate from the true God source energy that we all are. It took our power away. It made us feel like victims. But do you see how we're not really a victim? Because it was our choice to allow these frequencies to come into our field. And it was our choice to continue playing the thoughts that were a vibrational match to these frequencies that came into our field. So we were never a victim from the programs coming into our field from our environment. It was just experiences. And we were learning how to play with them. So now, because we know that they're just experiences and we can choose differently, we can begin to let these experiences go. We can begin to let these programs go out of the mind, out of the subconscious mind. And I can feel the neural pathways activated in a lot of you right at the top of the head, kind of off to the right. So we're going to begin to pull those neural pathways out. We're going to begin to pull this program out of your emotional body that lies right outside your physical body. We're going to pull these programs out of your lower 3 chakras that didn't have the ability to process the emotion, so they just got lodged in there. We're going to pull these programs, these codes, these frequencies out of your DNA because your body is now listening and recognizing what has occurred within it. So like my youngest son, ultimately what he would have ended up with had he taken the other timeline was unworthiness. Unworthiness to express his own desires. So let's begin to uncode, unwind, unprogram unworthiness. Uncode, unwind, unprogram not enough. Unprogram, uncode, unwind, shame. Unprogram, uncode, unwind, rejection. Uncode, unprogram, unwind, self-pity, unprogram, uncode, unwind, victimhood, uncode, unprogram, unwind, unlikable is coming up for someone. Uncode, unprogram, unwind. This one's hard for me to even say, ugly. Uncode, unprogram, unwind, stupid. Uncode, unprogram, unwind, everywhere you were told or you thought you made stupid decisions. Uncode, unwind, unprogram. Even on a deeper level, unlikable. For all the ways in which we were different. For all the ways in which you, as an individualized expression of God's source energy, saw the world, felt the world, understood the world, heard the world. So now I want you to have your inner child show you what he or she wants to do with all those old belief systems. Somebody's like shooting baskets and throwing them in a trash can. Somebody else has like a fairy wand and is like hitting him with their wand and it's sprinkling fairy dust all over the place. Play with these programs. We're not victims of them. We chose them. We weren't always conscious that we chose them, but we did. So we can make light of it and we can release them. And we don't have to blame anyone in our environment any longer for them. And we don't have to make up stories, whether they're right or wrong. They're just not a vibrational match to the truth of who we know ourselves to be now. So we're going to bring forward your divine child. This other aspect of you that's never been human, that's never went through or been programmed by emotions, to come sit down in front of your inner child. And they're just going to play for a little while. Somebody's playing Connect Four with theirs. Or maybe it's tic-tac-toe, it's something like that. So just let them play. And see how when one wins and the other one has a perception of loss, it's just an experience and it moves right through the inner child. It's not really a loss. It's just an experience. And they know how to play the game better next time. So we're going to continue to talk to your inner child and let it know when emotions are high, intelligence is low. So when it is going throughout its day with you in the adult you, and it sees something in its experience that would normally trigger that child, see how it doesn't have to happen anymore. Your inner child can just observe these different frequencies as frequencies. And they're frequencies that are either going to constrict and make that inner child more matter and less light, or they can allow in frequencies that are going to make it more light and less matter. And they don't have to react to these triggers. They just observe them. So I was working with another beautiful healer last week, and her ego asked this amazing question. And the question was, what happens if I don't allow in external frequencies to trigger my human container and show it where it needs to heal? How is it going to know where it needs to heal if I don't allow these frequencies in? And it was a really beautiful question. And the answer that came was that as we are evolving in consciousness and our own self-awareness of our projections, of what is happening internally, we now get quiet on our own time and ask what needs to be shown to be healed. So we ask ourselves, how do we feel about this thing that we observe today? When we have time to really process the full emotion of it. So instead of the old way of doing it is allowing that frequency to come into our field, it hits a nerve with us, it triggers us to get angry or sad or mad or overwhelmed. Now we take our power back. We realize it doesn't have to be that way anymore, that we can observe everything that's occurring around us. And we don't take on those frequencies. We don't take on the codes. We don't take on the programs any longer. We observe them. And then when we have time, we quietly ask ourselves, how do I feel about what I saw today? How do I feel about this experience today? Where am I feeling triggered in my body? Is it my mind? Is it my body? Where at in my body am I feeling this trigger? And then you get to breathe and honor it and remind yourself it's just codes. And in that way, we don't even have to know exactly what the trauma was that caused us to carry that code. We get to just breathe into the code, see it, and release it. And maybe we only get a glimpse of one code that's in that program. And that program is made up of 57 different codes, 57 different frequencies. It doesn't matter. When you release one, they all start to unravel. Okay, so now ask your inner child what kind of environment they would like to live in. Is it a mountainous view with a forest and stream and animals? Is it by the ocean where the dolphins and whales are jumping out of the water? Is it in the middle of a prairie where there's just green grass everywhere? Wherever it's at, build your inner child a little room, a home. And this room is decked out with anything and everything that inner child had ever desired. Toys and good food it was told it couldn't have, and all the different kind of clothes and shoes. And there's a million animal friends to keep it occupied and keep it company and to play with it. And then we're going to bring this entire scene, put your inner child in the bed, in the bedroom, and tell it there is nothing that you need from them. You were just wanting to be there for them today. And then you're going to bring this entire scene and place it right behind your belly button. And this is where your inner child resides. Or inner children. Sometimes we have different age groups that we go back and heal. So there's multiple inner child, inner children residing in there. Okay, and when you're ready, I want you to run energy from the bottom of your feet up through your core, out through the top of your head, up to the top of the energy field, and out all around you, down your biofield. And it's going to come up through you again. Just filling your own biofield with light. Now from the top of your biofield, above your crown chakra, right at the top of your head, we're going to bring another color, whatever color you desire, back down through your head, all the way down through the core of your body, down to the bottom of your energy field, and up all around you. And then it comes back down to the top of your head, and the rotation keeps going. So there's energy going up and there's energy going down. And you can begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes and come back and open your eyes. And what I want you to know is that nobody did this healing for you today. Everything you felt, everything you experienced, you didn't go anywhere. You did it. And you get to do that every day because you're God's source energy. So let me know how you're feeling, or if you have any questions, you can unmute and you can ask. Or if you just want to comment on anything. Or if you're completely zoned out, that's okay too. Okay. What a relief. True. Okay, so I'm gonna let everyone kind of just absorb what needs to be absorbed and integrate what needs to integrate. And you might have to go back and listen to the beginning. There was a lot of information a couple of different times, but the energy of this is always here. So if you want to go back and just, oh, thank you. Emotional when meeting the divine child. I love the divine child. So my oldest son with autism actually showed me the divine child, the star child, because for him, that's all there was. There really wasn't a human child. And so that divine child has never been programmed. It's never really been human. It's just this beautiful aspect of when we were created from the divine mother, divine father. And that's what we're reminding our human child, that it is this most unprogrammed thing that we can get back to. That's where we're headed. So thank you for sharing that question. That was your question. Jennifer Green, by the way, is a really beautiful healer, and she's the one that asked, her ego is the one that asked that question. And it was it's one of the best questions I've ever heard an ego ask, so I loved it. So the question was, just as a reminder, do we have to allow for external frequency to come into our field to trigger us to show what we need to heal? And the answer to that question was no, we don't have to. That's the old way of doing it, but we don't have to do that any longer. Now we just observe what's happening around us. When we have time to get quiet, we ask ourselves, is there something within me that is in resonance with the experience that happened today? Where do I feel triggered? Where do I feel tight? That way, it keeps your energy field a lot more clear. You're not taking on someone else's energy and having to heal that or release that. You're really, truly just a sovereign being of light, figuring out what is exactly yours and where is it located in the body, breathing into it, understanding it, not judging it, and releasing it. Does that make sense? So it's a different way of working with ourselves. And it's a different way to stay in the observation of what's occurring around us and not getting pulled into it. It's much easier to stay clean and to stay clear. And when we are that grounded and that expanded and that self-aware, that allows everyone around us to hold that same kind of space. I feel like I wasn't able to open my crown chakra. I feel this often. Sometimes I can relax into opening it and sometimes not. Well, there's a fear of, and actually this is kind of an understanding for you, Rosemary. We think that we always have to go up to, and I'm talking to your crown chakra, I'm talking to your mind, I'm talking to your body. We have been trained to go up to get information. We think that the higher levels of consciousness are outside of us. We think that we have to go up to these different realms of light to get that level of consciousness, to get that channeling to come down through and then bring that forward. Well, this isn't actually the case at all. We know that we're multidimensional beings and that we're very expansive. So everything we need to know, we can generate that information. It's already within us. It's not outside of us. We're in all these different realms of consciousness. And all we have to do is get quiet. That's why you're always hearing, make time to get quiet, make time to get quiet. When we are quiet, that's when we are most expanded out and we can connect into those dimensional fields that carry the levels of consciousness we're wanting to understand or we're wanting to bring through, because we are that. We reside in that realm as well as this one. This physical container seems so small, but it's not really. It's just energy. So we are here. Our crown chakra feels like it's here because we've been so focused on wanting to bring energy down like this when we don't have to do that anymore. We're a multi-dimensional being that lives in all these different realms of frequencies. So if we want to bring through the level of Christ consciousness, of Jeshua, then we tap into that aspect that is him in the realm in which he lives, which is many different realms. We keep thinking that things are outside of us, but they're not outside of us. All that is already within you. So that was actually your own way of telling yourself. It was a reminder of, I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to open anything up. It's already right here. Does that make sense? Can you feel that? Now, do you feel your crown chakra actually kind of relaxing a little bit? It is relaxing, yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, thank you all. So let's close our eyes, and I'm going to tell each of your higher selves, your inner children, your egos, your minds, your body consciousness, your souls, thank you. Thank you for being here with us today, for opening up to greater, more expansive levels of understandings about the truth of who we are and of who we came here to be. Thank you all for being such powerful beings of light. Thank you for holding space for yourself to expand and to grow. Thank you for those beings of light that came here to assist us today. And I'm grateful, and so it is. All right, bye.